Brexit champion Nigel Farage enters UK election race in more bad news for Sunak's Conservatives, by Christian Edwards and Luke McGee at CNN. Yeah, it's not just bad news for Sunak and the Conservatives, it's also bad news for the overt woke commies that run the civil service, the justice system, and, well, almost everything in the UK at this point. Looking at the Twitterverse, there's a lot of people slagging Nigel off from the right, saying that he's just more of the same and he's just an establishment crony and all of that. And I don't feel that's helpful. One old adage I've always liked is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And when somebody like Farage runs and gets torn down by all the conservative-minded people, I don't think it's useful at all. At the end of the day, Brexit would not have happened. Not even a sniff. It wouldn't have even been a discussion that we were allowed to have if it wasn't for Nigel Farage. You may remember when the French conceded that the people were getting anti-EU, and they just outright said, yeah, but they're not allowed to vote on that. It's too important. You know, the reporter doing the questioning was quite aghast. Like, what do you mean? Isn't it a free country? Oh, it's a free country, but they're only allowed to talk about the things that we tell them they're allowed to talk about. The British state had the same attitude. If it wasn't for Farage sucking up the votes from all the other parties because of that one issue, they would have never, ever gave us a vote. So basically, through the strength of his own will, he forced the UK out of the European Union on his own, pretty much single-handedly. Starting up the Brexit party and coming first in the European elections was astounding, considering the forces that were arrayed against him. It was a sterling effort. And for all of his flaws, and him being a bit milquetoast on some issues, the bloke gets things done. Is he perfect? No. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't let him have a pop. Can you honestly tell me with a straight face that Keir Starmer or Rishi Sunak are going to do better things for the UK than Nigel Farage would? You could replace either of them with a brick with a tie on it, and it'd do a better job than Keir Starmer or Sunak. Doing nothing would do a better job than Starmer or Sunak, because they're going to do overt harm to the country on purpose. Well, that's my 2 cents. I suppose we better read the story now, hadn't we? Nigel Farage, the architect of Brexit and a perennially disruptive force in British politics, has announced his intention to stand as a candidate for the hard right Reform UK party. Words are just meaningless now, aren't they? They're just meaningless. Hard right. What does that mean? What does that term actually mean? There used to be a thing called the far right. Now, everybody right of Owen Jones gets called hard right. Meaningless. I'm a socially liberal, sort of reasonable centrist chap, but I'm hard right now. Not right now, after reading about Owen Jones. I mean, hard right. I know you lot love double entendres. We'll just pack that in right here. In an emergency press conference Monday, Farage announced that he would contest a seat in Clacton, a deprived town on England's southeast coast where Reform has polled well, and that he could take over as leader of the party. Despite failing to be elected as a Member of Parliament, Farage's candidacy could inject new energy into the Reform campaign and provide another headache for Rishi Sunak, whose governing Conservative Party has long feared losing voters to the right. Everything's just gobbledygook now, isn't it? Because like no words don't mean anything anymore. Why would a Conservative Party fear losing voters to the right if it was a Conservative Party? Think about it. The woke, limp-wristed albino jellyfish, Boris Johnson, and the 5 Conservative leaders before and after have made it a left-wing party. So it shouldn't be called the Conservative Party. It should be called the Conserve Things About As Well as Napalm and Agent Orange do party. Just last month, Farage said he would not stand in the general election and that he would instead help with the grassroots campaign to re-elect Donald Trump. But speaking from London, he said he'd begun to change his mind over the weekend. He said when people asked him, after each exchange, I simply couldn't help feeling that somehow they felt I was letting them down. I have decided, I've changed my mind, it's allowed, you know, it's not always a sign of weakness. Farage's candidacy may do more harm to the Conservatives than it does good for Reform. The Conservatives have tried to appeal to a more right-wing voters by promising to crack down on immigration, most eye-catchingly by attempting to send asylum seekers to Rwanda. How can they even say that with a straight face after they've moved 1 million people a year to the UK? It's actually unbelievable. The brass neck on the Conservative Party. But anyway, yeah, that's it. Nigel's running. And if you've got any sense, you should support reform. And again, I know me and Paz and Rotten Politics, and there's a lot of other people on the right who've been very sceptical of them, but at the end of the day, he's a bit of an enigma, but he's done great things for us. Single-handedly got us out of the European Union, I firmly believe that. And who knows what he's got up his sleeve. Probably can't win, but it can come strong second. Maybe there could be an actual proper opposition for a change. That'd be nice, to see this so-called adversarial Parliament actually disagreeing on things, because when you've just got Labour and the Conservatives, there's no debates or discussions on any policies coming into place. And that's the real problem. At least when you hash it out, you arrive at the good ideas. When they're not even having any arguments or debates, that's when you're in real trouble. So we need someone in there who might actually argue the toss with whoever's the Prime Minister. So that's my piece. I'd support him and I'd vote reform. I've been on and off that boat a long time, but Farage has swung it for me. I'd vote for reform, and I hope you do too. In other news, I did watch the rally over the weekend in London. There's loads of good footage on Twitter regarding that. It went great. The police actually behaved themselves for a change because they knew they were getting videoed. Carl Benjamin's speech was spot on. I watched that. And the media's coverage of it, as you can see here, Tony Romo supporters shout out hate chants at far-right demo. It's just preposterous. There was nothing far-right about it. It was just normal working-class people. Normal people are hooligans and far-right when they're being discussed by milquetoast, hand-wringing, middle-class arseholes and journalists from the gutter press and BBC and Guardian reader types. So it's just nonsense. It seemed great. It looks like it was like a real carnival atmosphere. And I don't know, I will have to try and get over there for one of them because it looked spot on. I think I'd have a whale of a time there. If you haven't seen it, check out Carl Benjamin's Twitter. That's Sargon of Akkad's Twitter. And watch his pinned tweet regarding his sort of 7-minute speech. It was really, really good. And certainly would appeal to anybody who hasn't got a head full of horse shit and fresh air. I.e. nobody who works for the BBC or writes for the Telegraph. Anyway, that's my piece for the day. I hope you're all doing well and you had a good weekend. I'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. Toodle pip. Cheers.